I'm going to say we were 300 or 400 yards down past the rips before we could get the boat emptied out and get out of there. It was the worst swim I've ever had in a canoe, and that's 50 years of canoeing.
Oh, jeez. I wouldn't be surprised if that voice sounds familiar. Bucky Owen is one of the most famous professors of wildlife in University of Maine history. But that's not why he's on today's show. Bucky Owen served as Commissioner of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife under Governor Angus King. But that's not why he's on today's show. Bucky Owen is on today's episode of Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine because I just happened to be standing next to him on the riverbank in Eddington during last weekend's Penobscot River Whitewater Nationals Regatta, as we were watching his son Jeff win the national title once again in the one-man canoe race. All this became possible when two obsolete dams were removed from the river, showing us portions of the river that nobody alive today has ever seen, and opening up recreation we only dreamed of. Today, a recap. I'm heading into this program with two questions in mind. How did the first national regatta on the Penobscot River go? And what are we going to do with it? Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Dysarts, EBS, and Supercuts in Bangor, Brewer, and Old Town. Here's the situation. The American Canoe Association rotates its national competition around the country to famous whitewater rivers. Competitors bid on it, and if all goes according to plan, it stays in place for 3 years before moving on. Maine won the bid thanks to the efforts of many local canoeing enthusiasts, and especially to the Penobscot Indian Nation, who are the official hosts and provided much of the organization. The 5-day event started a week ago Wednesday. Racing started on Thursday and went through last Sunday morning. The headquarters tent was in the park in Old Town, but various races started in various places along the river. There were classes for racing and recreational canoes and kayaks. There were race divisions for young and old, men and women, mixed and solo. By all reports, it was the best attendance for one of these races in Maine ever. And it's no surprise that I would immediately run into people I know.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Oh, nice to see you.
I saw your tent here. I figured you were here. That's Lanny Love Cochran. She's been on the show before, a couple of times in fact. She and her husband Chip run canoe tours on the Allagash. And when she's not doing that, she's directing programming at Maine Huts and Trails. She and her canoe partner, Shelley Koenig, are among the competitors putting their boats in the water for the long race downriver that is just about to start. Spoiler alert, they finished second. I know, because they'll be on the show later to tell us all about it. This is a national caliber expert event, and some of the nation's top whitewater competitors are here. It's 10 minutes before 10 o'clock. The Open Whitewater Championships start. In 10 minutes, the boats are already in the water. They're going upriver to the dam in Old Town. They put in a Burnett Park, but they actually have to sort of paddle down the Milford side of the river because that's where all the water is. The water's a little low right now, so they are forced to go over and start from there. So this radio show is essentially trying to make a program out of organized chaos. They did the launch, and now I'm just watching what's happening and leaving because all the action is going to happen downriver, probably at the Great Works. One of the places they removed a dam a couple of years ago. That's where the action's going to be. That's where everybody is now headed. So all of a sudden, we go from the starting line to away immediately. So, getting to one of my questions about what to do with this race. Canoe races are like sled dog races or anything cross-country. You can watch the start, but then that's over in minutes, and now what? For this long race, which is nearly 10 miles downstream from Old Town to Eddington Bend, the only thing to do is hop in the car and race the racers to the next good viewing spot. In this case, that's at Great Works, the site of a dam removal 3 years ago. The Old Town Mill is on the west bank of the river, and you can't get there from here, but Bradley is pretty terrific. There's an old baseball field where there's lots of room to park. This whole stretch of river has great viewing and lots of rocks to sit on. By the time the races get here, they're strung out a bit, and you've got plenty of time to watch them all before hustling downstream for the next site. What's most interesting is that this is a wide section of river with many passages to choose from. Each canoe has to figure that out, and it could all change with even a slight change in the water level. Watching the strategy and watching the lines the boats take is pretty interesting, and some do get in trouble. This is some pretty heavy whitewater and a series of drops. You mess up on the first one, it's a long, rough swim.
Boy, that last Penobscot took on a lot of water. They're sinking quickly. A couple of folks standing by to give them assistance if they need it, but they're going to make it okay to the shoreline. But they're driving a tank right now. There's not a whole lot of freeboard left on that canoe. Kayak slices right through, right behind him. Rather tall gentleman in a red Penobscot is coming down right through the center line now, past through the crib works, picking his line. Not through the center. He's actually coming over to the near side here. Picks fairly gentle whitewater to get through and then paddles his way fast towards the center to catch the water coming out of the other rip. And actually does pick up reasonably good speed. Got a solo kayaker coming down through now. He's gone over this close on this banking. This is the first person I've seen take this line. He takes the left-hand shoulder down on the Bradley side of the river, avoiding some of the heavy water but taking some of the fast stuff. So this may be a good strategy, especially for that kayak. At least it's a shorter route, but now he's got to work his way back towards the middle of the river where the heavy flow is going. That may cost him a moment or two, but he's moving right along. Another kayak is coming through right behind him. He, on the other hand, took the far bank. Over on the Old Town side, going right next to the mill. He looks like he's going right. He's going to take the heavy water down the middle. Yeah, he's actually picking his line right now. It looks a little tentative. But he's going to take the heavy water right through the middle. Down he goes, no problem. Splashed a bit. He's not going to win. A couple of rather large guys in the Penobscot are next. They're going under the power lines now, just about to pass the crib works. They're going far right. Clearly that's the strategy. They're not guessing on the way. They've decided to go that way from the get-go. They're passing down the far bank along the Old Town side of the river. Just now clearing the crib works and setting up their line. They're paddling hard. And if anyone's going to run into trouble, it'd be these two guys, because they already look low in the water. They're up to the ledge drop. The next to last one, they're going the heavy water through. They're grabbing the gunnels, never a good sign. They splash down through. They get hung up on a ledge. They're carrying a lot of water, and they're going very slowly. And they still have one more, maybe the biggest drop to go, although not as difficult. But it's got heavier water sluiced through the middle on the other side. They pick up speed again, trying to take that drop. And they hit the heavy water, and they are through and paddling hard to get to the finish line.
Coming up, we head downriver for the finish of this race, where Bucky Owen will tell me about the worst canoe spill of his life in over 50 years of paddling. And later...
You know, for example, on the river, we had a little tit with a tit for tat with another boat.
A 300-yard wide river, and we were bumping gunnels with another boat for like a mile and a half.
Yeah.
Really?
This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. The Penobscot River Whitewater Nationals Regatta was last weekend. Not only is today's show a recap of some action, but we're also planning for next year's race. This national competition has the potential to be really big, and the excitement can draw a nice crowd. So what are we going to do about it? One of the challenges of a canoe race like this one is that the action happens in so many different places, and some of those places aren't obvious or easy to get to. And so it was that I found myself at Eddington Bend at the Old Salmon Club, but the best place to watch the action is upriver where the old VZ Dam came out. Where do I park? Where do I walk? How do I get down to the riverbank?
Okay, there's a right way and a wrong way to do all this. I'm currently doing the wrong way. Go down to Eddington Bend for the finish line. And clearly the real action is going to be up at the old VZ Dam where that was taken out. There's a park on the VZ side, but I didn't want to drive around to it. So I parked at Eddington Bend and said, I'll just walk up the riverbank over loose pebble
for a mile. So I don't recommend this. Okay, just about up to the old VZ Dam site. On the VZ side, they've actually made a park out of this now, and if you can get around to it, that's the easier place to probably park and watch. I came in the Eddington side, walking back up towards Bradley, back up towards the VZ Dam site. I'm almost up to where people have gathered. But again, I would recommend against going to the Eddington Club and then trying to walk up here. It's got to be a better way. And as long as these long races are, by the time all the action leaves Great Works, you've got time to get around to either side. Probably just go back up through Old Town and down to VZ and do that. So that's my next lesson. The whole downriver race takes 90 minutes or so. You can watch the start, rush to Great Works in the Bradley side opposite the Old Town Mill to watch the toughest part of the race, and then you actually have plenty of time to get downriver for the finish. That includes time to go around to the old VZ Dam site on either side of the river. Probably it's best to go back up to Old Town and down through Orono to the new park in VZ where the dam was. Fortunately for me, I got to the Eddington side of the rapids just in time to join Bucky and Sue Owen. Bucky is a professor emeritus of wildlife studies at the University of Maine, former commissioner of inland fisheries and wildlife under Governor Angus King, and he's been canoeing and canoe racing since he was a toddler. But right now, the excitement is coming from his son, Jeff Owen. As early in the race as Great Works, Jeff was already way out in front of the solo canoe class.
Well, he's still got a reasonable lead. He's not paddling quite as hard as before.
Altogether, Jeff Owen went on to win 9 different events over the 4 days of racing.
He was way out ahead even.
Yes, I have to say.
He is the reigning national champion.
Really?
Yeah.
No wonder you're here.
Don't lose it there. That's the last one.
No.
Paddle! Paddle! Put the wood to it!
Okay, put the wood to it is kind of funny because today's racing paddles are lightweight composites.
He has an unbelievable student program.
Yeah.
And has as many as 24 kids.
Jeff Owen spends a lot of time teaching kids how to paddle competitively. One group is at Orono High School. The other is the Maine Canoe and Kayak Racing Association Junior Whitewater team. Some of these kids are racing nationally now. And if that weren't enough to keep Jeff busy, his own youngsters are competitors, and both Katie and Tommy did well last week.
Go Clayton! Woo!
Just don't distract him there.
Yeah, right.
Oh, so here comes the carbon. Here comes Will. Here's Will. Will came in second in the junior senior yesterday morning with our granddaughter up there in the blue.
At this point, some of the other boats are starting to come through, and we're watching which lines they pick through the rapids, how much muscle they've still got left after 10 miles, and whether they've got water in the boat.
So how much scouting do all these racers do?
How much what?
Scouting do they do?
Oh, a lot.
Yeah.
Jeff and some of his people have been in here 10 times at least.
Yeah.
In fact, they go like at Basin Mills below Stillwater. They'll go and run it, pull the boats back up, run it, and look at each line and figure it out.
Now, I grew up in a canoe. I could paddle before I could swim. I've done some pretty heavy whitewater in the past, but that was a long time ago. I now have a bucket list of things I like to do and a bucket list of things I'll never do again.
And I'm not that smart. My partner and I was coming up. We haven't paddled for 35 years, and together. But 42 years ago, we placed third in this, in the long class on the lower dead. That's when it was a 22-mile race.
Yeah.
6 miles of flat water, 3/4 mile portage, and 16 miles.
That is way too much.
Now, the partner Bucky Owen was talking about, maybe another name familiar to you. It's Frank Woodard, founder of Woodard & Curran, one of the premier engineering companies in the state. Frank is considered to be the dean of civil engineering in the state. Bucky and Frank are both in their late 70s. They're both retired, but that didn't keep them out of the river. For the first time in decades, they got together to try their luck in the worst part of this river at Great Works on the day before the national races began. It didn't go well.
Well, I was with my partner. Last time we raced, and last time he really paddled was 35 years ago.
So rusty.
A little rusty. And we got in the waves right at the top, and my son turned around and he said we were both grabbing the gunnels. And over we went, and 2 or 3 boats tried to get us in behind a big log crib in the eddy. They couldn't do it. Finally, they had to break because we were going into the really big water.
Yeah.
Went down through, bumped over a number of rocks. I came up under the canoe for a while and going down through the rapid. That was not good.
No.
And I'm going to say we were 300 or 400 yards down past the rips before we could get the boat emptied out and get out of there. It was the worst swim I've ever had in a canoe, and that's 50 years of canoeing.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, here we go. This is a tight race right here.
They've all three picked different lines.
Yeah. This guy in the front.
Yeah.
He is strong. Look at him go. Well, this guy's no slow.
This is
You see him shoot ahead?
Jeez. 4 boats, 4 different lines chosen through here.
Right.
That's interesting.
So here we are, standing on the banks of the Penobscot River last weekend during the Penobscot River Whitewater Nationals Regatta. I'm standing with Bucky Owen on the Eddington side of the river where the old VZ Dam came out. The finish line is down below at the Salmon Club on Eddington Bend. One of the pairs I've been watching is a pair I mentioned earlier in the show, Lanny Love Cochran and Shelley Koenig. Now, I know Lanny. I just met Shelley. They finished second in this race, crossing the line just a few minutes ago, but 24 seconds behind the winner. When Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine returns in a moment, I'll ask him what went wrong. This is Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Saturday mornings at 9, Sunday mornings at 8 on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. Today's show is a recap of last weekend's Penobscot River Whitewater Nationals Regatta. The American Canoe Association agrees that this was a great river, a great community, and the hosts were terrific. So they've confirmed this national competition is coming back the next 2 years. When we took a break, we had just concluded the 10-mile downriver race from Old Town to Eddington Bend. To get the inside story, most radio hosts would talk to the winner. But what if you talk with the second-place finishers? Lanny Love Cochran and Shelley Koenig were just 24 seconds behind after a race that lasted 1 hour and 18 minutes. That is disappointingly close.
So what happened yesterday? 21 seconds behind over an hour and a half of paddling. That's got to hurt.
This river is really technical. You know, you approach the rapids, and if you don't have your line and you know what you're going to do, it's hard to just run it blind. And we were lucky. They made a couple mistakes, but then we made a couple mistakes. And overall, I'd rather go into a competition battling and both have good runs than see someone, jump and then not have a good run. But they kept us honest, and I know that they're going to say we kept them pretty honest too.
Well, when you say you made a mistake, those of us watching from the riverbank would never know what mistake you were making unless we knew what line you should have taken.
Yes. Yeah. You would not. We didn't know we made that mistake until we made it.
Yeah.
But no, I think if you were in the boat and you had a tape recorder, you might hear a few words that you wouldn't want to repeat. But it's awesome to be on a river that is running for the first time in many years, and it's got not only natural obstacles and pour-overs and wave trains, but it's got some crib works and some industrial obstacles too. So, and then throw in a couple, more than a couple dozen boats that you have to pass. So there's some more obstacles, but. You live in Maine, you get out here, that's what you do. It's super fun. We had a really great day.
You just used a whole bunch of terms that nobody in this listening audience, except for a handful of people, are going to know. Oh. A pour-over.
Oh, well, a pour-over is what you want to avoid, except when your bow girl goes, we're going through the pour-over. You're like, all right.
In which case, you bury the front of the boat and pick up water.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the thing about your bow girl. If she's, she stays in your boat, so you gotta work together. The canoe is awesome because you communicate, you work together, but yet at the same time you have a little bit of being individual because you gotta, someone's got to pick the route and then you got to agree on it. But a pour over is an obstacle in which you typically don't want to go over in a canoe. Shelley, why don't you explain?
Yeah, tell me all about it, Shelley.
Since you led us through it.
Since I know so much about canoeing. A pour-over is just basically usually by a rock hazard. And so when you go over it, there's what's called an eddy behind it. Yeah. And so the water's flowing upstream, and that can create some pretty good white water, but it's moving in the opposite direction. So first of all, it stops you, and secondly, it likes to flip you. So.
Did it come close to flipping you yesterday?
Not at all, actually.
No.
Funny thing was we had, for this particular rapid she's talking about, we'd picked a line going around the pour-over, and there's some pretty large diagonal waves right beside it that you have to skirt as well. So you have to kind of thread the needle between them. And we watched the boat in front of us go right over the pour over and come out dry. So I was like, changing plans, Lanny, we're going straight over it. And we did, and actually we didn't take on an ounce of water there.
Really?
No, you just lean back and paddle like crazy. And like I said, we watched someone else go over first. So it wasn't like this was all my idea. But
Now,
it was a faster line.
The person in front has to do the bailing. Did you have to bail much?
You know what? We only had to bail here at this rapid. So no, yesterday we actually stayed pretty dry. And interestingly, it unfortunately kind of worked out that most of the water went to the back of the boat. So Lanny had to bail most of the water out while trying to steer the boat. And that was one of our mistakes, was that once there's water in, she can't steer the boat. So we're kind of veering all over the river trying to get the water out.
Did you have a chance to practice this river at all ahead of time?
Yeah, we actually came down 3 times and practiced. And the thing about this river is at different water levels, it's a totally different river.
Right.
So when we first ran it, it was really high and it was pretty intimidating. The second time it was low, so it was very forgiving. The third time we ran it, we were like, wow, we're owning it now. And then the race day, we're like, wait, weren't we supposed to be like out here owning this river? But, and the thing about a race line is different than a recreation line. When you're out there to have fun, you want to hit the big stuff and you're like, wee, this is fun. A race line is, you want to go in the fast water.
Yeah.
So you have these different perspectives, like where's the fast water, where are the holes, where's my competitors, who's behind me, who's ahead of me,
I couldn't disagree more. When I do it recreationally, I look for the cleanest, driest line I can find, even if it means zigzagging all over the river, just to there's a nice little sweet slot through there.
Oh, it's true. I don't want to spill my beer.
And right, exactly. And when you're competing, like all of that, which is the fastest way down, the straightest way down, and sometimes, we went through things that I would never otherwise guide us through.
That's why we're good partners, because I look for the big wild ride and Shelley looks for the clean ride, and we're like, okay, let's compromise.
Partnership matters, because I have a big gash in my canoe because my wife and I can never agree in the right line. Is it possible to canoe with your spouse in any competitive way?
You do?
I've done a lot of big races with my spouse, and I probably would have done it with him if I didn't have Shelley.
You know what it is that at least with Lanny and I think we have an agreement that I pick the line and I tell us where we're going to go. And Lanny will follow that unless she can't do it, in which case she just tells me what to do. And if she tells me what to do, it doesn't matter where I thought we were going, I do what she says. So even if I think we're going to go river right, if she doesn't think we're going to make it there and she tells me draw left, then I do.
Yeah, there were a few times yesterday she goes, go right of the rock. No, we're going left. Okay. But there are times when we first started paddling, we had a little miscommunication. I would say, are we going to go left of the rock? And she'd go, no, we're going to go right of the rock. Okay, you mean left of that rock or right of the rock? I don't understand.
The rock on the right or right of the rock?
I've lived this before.
Yes, so it does. You have to work on the communication part just as much as any kind of paddling
most important,
part.
once you're out there, you can't argue.
No. Otherwise, I want to go right. She wants to go left. You're going to go over it.
Yeah.
That's not where you want to go.
But I do have to say, yesterday, the group of women that were, all of the women in the category that we were in, the 9 or 10 boats, they were fierce competitors, and that's pretty special.
The field from the start to the finish, I think, was all within like 8 minutes.
Well, these are the nationals.
That's right.
And that's something I'm not used to. Like, for me, I expect there to be, a good 40-minute window of people finishing.
Yeah.
And, you could see every boat in front and behind. We were all just in a line.
You can hear them.
Yeah.
And when you hear them that close, that must urge you on to a better performance.
Well, it does for me. If you're not a competitor by heart, you wouldn't be out here. You're a competitor. For example, on the river, we had a little tit with a tit for tat with another boat.
A 300-yard wide river, and we were bumping gunnels with another boat for like a mile and a half.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Does that happen normally?
Well, it happened with us.
There was one line. We all wanted it.
Well, that's the thing. Like, they knew the line, we knew the line, so we both wanted to stay in it. And we had a couple words. And then at the end of the race, we're like, hey, we're all back to being friends again.
Absolutely.
But when you're out there, you put your game face shows
Swapping
up and you
paint.
do it.
I didn't know you would do that outside of NASCAR.
Oh, hey. And you certainly wouldn't think so on such a wide river.
I know. Yeah. But it's awesome. It was an absolutely great race yesterday.
It really was. Yeah.
I haven't seen some of the other races they do nationally, obviously. I only know this one. But when I look at this river, I say, this is probably a pretty good river for a nationals race, isn't it?
I think it's, yeah. The last time it was in Maine, it was on the Dead, which is also a pretty amazing river. I mean, the thing that really attracted us to the race is because it's the Nationals, but also because they tied in the Penobscot Indians and the fact that it's on a river that's running for the first time. You know, those things all combined together, and it's in Maine, you know, your backyard. It makes you feel like you're proud of where Maine is and what this river is doing. Yeah,
as I've watched this for the last couple of days, I'm thinking this has a lot of potential to be a big race. I mean, really attractive.
For sure.
I mean,
I think it's quite a bit bigger now than it has been before. Even they said
it's the largest turnout that they've had for a Maine Nationals, and maybe even Nationals that are outside of Maine. But this has been one of the largest turnouts they've ever had.
That doesn't surprise me because the Dead River will kill you.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
That's Lanny Love Cochran and Shelley Koenig, runners-up in the women's downriver pair canoe race. Today's show revisits last weekend's Penobscot River Whitewater Nationals Regatta. It's a flavor of some of the excitement of this year's competition, but also some consideration on how to get ready for next year and how to handle problems. For instance, what if next year's Friday afternoon youth race was surrounded by bursts of lightning, launching from a spot with very limited parking and partially blocked by road construction detours and a one-way street? Oh, wait, that was this year. Stand by. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. This is Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket with Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Today's show is about last week's national canoe race. The Penobscot River Whitewater Nationals Regatta spanned 5 days, ending last Sunday. We're recapping some of the excitement, but also pondering how to make it better for next year. I went to a lot of the events, and I offer this observation. This national whitewater canoe competition was excellent for the competitors. Water levels were low, but it'll be scheduled for June next year when water will be higher. Meanwhile, even at these levels, now that 2 obsolete dams are gone, the whitewater rush from Old Town to Eddington is great for competition and even recreation. Getting boats into and out of the water wasn't too hard. I do think there is room for improvement on making this a spectator event. Signage and access to viewing areas can be improved for next year, because when word gets out about how good this was this year, you can expect more spectators next year. For instance, the Youth Downriver Race launched from the Orono boat ramp. Now, getting there is easy enough. It's just a turn off Main Street on Island Avenue. Except that, as luck would have it, Island Avenue was blocked by construction. The detour is one way, and once you get to the boat ramp, there's not a lot of parking. But it could be worse. It could have been thunder and lightning. It's 15 minutes before 2 o'clock, Friday afternoon, July 24th. This is irony. For days, they've been hoping for rain to bring up the level of the Penobscot River a little bit, so they've been praying for rain. The rain came, just not at the right time. Sitting here at the Orono boat launch on the Penobscot River, waiting to see if the youth division of canoes and kayaks gets into the river race. Lots of other people standing around wondering the same thing. For the last hour and a half, we've had thunder, lightning. Here's another burst of lightning right there. People are getting under cover. And we're going to sit this one out and see if the race is going to go. 5 minutes to 2 o'clock, we get word that we're postponed till 3. All the rain we've been waiting for never came until now. It's raining, but the lightning has stopped. We had been told that the race would try again at 3 p.m. But when the storm lit up, and all the races were already there anyway, they started early, about 15 minutes early. Now it's still raining, but here they go.
You guys all ready? Okay, I'm going to give you a count from 5 down, okay? Kind of line up even. Okay, ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
And the kids are off. It looks like about 7 canoes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, make it 8 canoes and 1 kayak. This is a youth division. It's about a 25-minute race. They start here at the Orono boat landing, get down to Veazey, and take out down there, a few miles down. It's about a 20 to 25-minute race. This is definitely the youth category. Some of the kids off a little bit slow, some blocking each other on their way out, but everybody enthusiastic and off with the start. We're now downstream, 20 minutes later.
Having to lean way over to get to the water to paddle is what he's doing.
Tell you what, I'm seeing parts of the Penobscot River I've never seen before.
Come on, kids! Go! Who's that?
Oh, somebody's coming up right here.
Come on over here, River!
River right. Yeah.
Come on, River, go! Come this way, come on!
VZ Town offices just across the street, but we had to come down through somebody's backyard to get here, and I've never seen this part of the Penobscot River, and probably a couple of years ago it didn't look like this before the dams came out. The boats are upstream. There's, I think, 7 or 8 racers, all solo kids. The youth division right now in the open canoe classification, the open canoe classification. And one canoe easily ahead, then 3 or 4 clustered right behind and some distance behind. So the first place finisher is for certain. The rest is a race, and it's going to be an interesting one as they come down here. They're closing the distance now. You can see this was a working river. There are pilings all up and down this section of the river. At one time they were floating things down here. A lot of this exposed once the VZ Dam came out. Here we go. First racer across. He's well ahead of the others. Be another 30 seconds before the second canoe gets here. Relatively short race. That was only about 20 minutes. All right, 2 comes across. 3 actually is moving towards us on this side of the river. I'm not sure he knows where the finish line is. I think we may have just seen a swap of places inadvertently. But 3 and 4 are across, still 6 and 7 upriver and coming in a little more slowly. So this youth classification, the race is over. We'll go back upstream and check results. The thunderstorms of Friday afternoon were nothing compared to the deluge of Friday night. Storms passed through the Bangor area overnight, and the big question is, how will this affect water levels in the Penobscot River? Saturday morning is the sprint races, 1 mile straight through the roughest whitewater on the river. There are racers who have scouted and practiced this section of the river many times over the previous week, but all of that is out the window if the water level changes. Saturday morning dawns cool, overcast, and comfortable for spectators. For racers, well, who knows? It's the sprints.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
Saturday morning, July 25th. This is the day that a lot of people were looking at as the most exciting, perhaps, of the bunch, because these are the sprint races today. This is when the various classifications start just above Great Works, just above the Old Town Mill, and race down through the worst part of the rapids on this section of the river for only about a mile course. So it's as fast as you can go through the fastest whitewater you can find. And if that doesn't go well, that's just more interesting for the spectators. I'm at the put-in right now, watching exactly, actually what I'm most curious about is what is everybody using? And it's astounding how many people have Old Town Penobscots as their racing canoe. That'll be the Royal X recreational class. Obviously there's the faster canoes that they have here, the Kevlar.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
Everybody's got flotation, bent paddles, ready to go. I'm going to go position myself so that I can see all this from down below. The sprints are underway, and it's a pretty interesting setup. They bring all the boats, no matter what classification you're in. Everyone's got numbers, and you line up as you enter the river. So there is no particular order to anything. When you're ready to go, they put you up front, and they take your number, and they start the timer. You get 1 minute between races. Everybody races one at a time. Everyone goes one at a time, and it's a timed event. The object is to get downriver as fast as possible, but it starts by going upriver. From the start, you actually have to go upstream and around a buoy, and it's only about 75, 80 yards upstream before you have to go around the buoy, but the water pouring through there is fast, and several canoes are misjudging, so if you get up to the buoy too steeply, it suddenly pushes you backwards and you can't make it. I watched one canoe lose a lot of time just trying to make that buoy. everyone has watched that for a while. They're now figuring it out. And if you come in at a shallow angle to it over from the side of the river, you can get around much faster. But just going upstream and then pushing yourself around the buoy and down has been a challenge for some of these boats. But it's a staggered start. Everybody's watching and listening. People have been watching the results as they go through the rapids downstream. So those who didn't start first may have a trifle advantage. There's a number of different classifications all going at once. Canoes, kayaks. The canoes are in two different groups. There is the recreational, which generally tend to be Penobscots or equivalents made by other manufacturers, but the Old Town Penobscot is by far the most common recreational canoe being used in this race. Then there are some true racing Kevlar canoes that are being used as well. Everyone's got bent paddles, everyone's got gloves, everyone's got helmets. These are not inexperienced paddlers.
This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine, riverside of the Penobscot River Whitewater Nationals Regatta last weekend. The sprints are underway, and we'll grab some of the action in a few minutes. But we'll also step back and talk about what this really means. Nobody alive today knew what this section of the river looked like before the dams were built last century. The dams came out, the power generation was enhanced elsewhere, and now we're watching this section of the river bring recreation and money to Eastern Maine's economy. One of the key people to make that possible will join me riverside in just a few minutes. This is Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. Welcome back to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Last weekend, the Penobscot River Whitewater Nationals Regatta came to Old Town. This is a national championship that has been in Maine before. It has been held on the Dead River in the past. It rotates around the country on some of America's best whitewater rivers, and this competition is the first of 3 years it will be on the Penobscot. I'm on the Bradley side of Great Works opposite the Old Town Mill, the site of where one obsolete dam was removed 3 years ago. It's now the heaviest rapids in the river section and the site of the sprint races. I began up top at the starting line, but the viewer is better below, so follow me.
I moved downriver to the best vantage points. The upstream start is good to watch, and it's interesting to watch the tactics from there, but down here you get to watch how they handle the ledges, the drops, all the heavy water and some of the piled up waves. A shout out to the Penobscot Nation, by the way. Penobscots are the hosts for this event and did much of the work in putting it all together. Many are participating, and this has been a controversial issue in the last year or more, as there's been a wrestling match between the state and the tribe as to how to keep the water or make the water cleaner in the Penobscot River. So there are big signs up on the riverbank that say water is life, clean water, edible fish, honor the treaties. So there's an undercurrent of public policy in regards to the cleanliness of the river and how the tribes are treated, but that does not in any way detract from what a great event the hosts have managed to put on for this. From my vantage point right now, I am about a half a mile, make it a little more than that, let's say 3/4 of a mile downstream from the starting point. Spectators are lined up along the shoreline. If you're going to see only one race next year, I would recommend that you look at the schedule and do the sprints. You get to watch each individual canoe and how they handle the rapids, analyze the techniques, and watch the trouble they can get into. This is a sprint of a mile, maybe a little bit more than a mile, but not much. And it's all rapid from the start to the finish. I'm now most of the way downstream, not too far from the finish line. This is where the worst drops are. And over the last two canoes, I've watched two solos go through. The one came over on the left side, went down some shallower drops and got hung up on a ledge. He got stuck right there, got turned around. It's going to make terrible time. A one-man Kevlar canoe, a really fast boat, went through the heavy drop on the right side next to the mill and went right over as he went over the drop. Now a two-man canoe is trying to do the same thing, but they're hugging the riverbank. They picked the right line so far because they made it through that drop just fine. But now they're hung up on a ledge over there. Picking the right drop coming through here is probably the test. There's two tests. One is getting around the upper buoy. The other is coming down and picking the right line through this river. The problem is there is a lot of choices. You can come over really shallow on the river sides, or you can take the heavy water in the middle. You can go left or right. You can split the two, and no right line is necessarily going to be right depending on the changing conditions. recreational canoe at Penobscot is coming through. They're taking the far side, on the right side next to the mill. Paddling hard, and they're going right for the heavy drop. If they make this, they're in good shape. If they don't, they went through like a knife through butter. I don't think they even took on a whole lot of water. That was a good run through there. Solo kayak is coming through. He's going to take the heavy water right through the middle. That gives the kayak an advantage because he's not going to swamp. He's not going to take on water. He didn't even slow down as he bounced through those waves and went through. So he just kept up a steady paddle the whole way. Kayaks had the advantage in picking the line. He is just taking the heavy water everywhere he can find it and motoring through fast. Not many kayaks. These are national canoe champions for the most part, with some kayak divisions and with even a paddleboard, although I think I've only seen one. It's mostly canoes, and it's mostly recreational Royal X type canoes. There are some Kevlars. Lots of people are expert here, but a lot of recreational canoes are probably forming the bulk of what we're seeing here. Well, we have a boat in trouble. That solo red Penobscot got to the big ledge drop, actually went to the right of it. Didn't even catch the worst of the water, but managed to swamp. He's now stuck there trying to get the boat off. He's not moving, the boat's not moving. Now he's got it turned up right. The advantage of flotation. In the meantime, another Penobscot is passing him with a two-man crew. They sluice by right to the left of him. They have no trouble getting through. But that other boat is going to have to go to the sideline, empty out, and that's the way it goes.
Also watching the race in the spot, Laura Rose Day. As executive director of the Penobscot River Restoration Trust, she's had about as much to do with the success of reopening the river as anyone on the planet. So you got to be pretty happy about this today.
Yeah, it's very exciting. You know, this year we've seen rebounding fish populations.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's one benefit of having removed the dams and opening up the river. But this is also a really important part. There are hundreds of people here really excited about paddling what's essentially a new river to people.
Yeah.
And they are having a great time. And hopefully this race will take place over the next couple of years, and then we'll see after that too. But this, the Whitewater Nationals are scheduled to be here for 3 years, including this year, and by all accounts, it's been a great success so far.
Yeah, I think what's funny is that it really is a new river. For people who've been doing the Kenduskeag Extreme Canoe Race for so long, they know what it's going to do and every place to go, depending on the water level, but nobody had any experience with this until they get out to practice over the last week.
Yes, there isn't anyone here who's done the stretch at all water levels and has really learned it fully. So people are just, been a while since I've seen this many people, they are just having a fantastic time. and all, you know, I've been talking to people about their experience, and it's been great, and they're looking forward to coming back. I've also been talking to people in restaurants and at the hotels around, and you know, every car you look at has a kayak or a canoe on top of it. And so people are also here contributing to the local economy, which is another bonus in addition to the fun.
And to be able to keep as much power generation in the process as well, I mean, it's a win-win.
Absolutely, yeah. It is. So we're this is exciting to see it, and also to see people out, you know, engaging with the river, and it's such a. I mean, paddling is, anyone can do it. I mean, this happens to be Whitewater, but there's so much paddling in the area. It's a big business, and it's a great way for people to stay healthy. You know, whether you're paddling quietly around the edge of a lake or whether you're out here, you know, whooping over the rapids. You know,
well, I mean, for God's
really
sakes,
great.
We've got Old Town, which was Canoe City for a century.
Yeah,
and yet we couldn't use this section of river.
And great to see so many young people too. You know, people who are going to be doing this for many years to come. So,
and I got to say, it's great to see the Penobscot Nation come out and support it so well and participate so much, because there's a lot of the tribe in here.
Yes, yesterday and the day before there were youth races, and they took out on the shoreline in Bradley. And the Bradley town government gave kind of goodie bags to the youth finishers, and it was really wonderful to see those kids come in there to a piece of shoreline that's been underwater for a couple of hundred years, and and again, all accounts, a great time was had by all.
Well, truth is, for all of our lifetimes, nobody had ever seen this until the dam came out. Nobody had ever seen the river like this.
It's true.
Once again, that's Laura Rose Day, Executive Director of the Penobscot River Restoration Trust. And we were in Riverside and Bradley at Great Works on the opposite bank of the Old Town Mill during last weekend's sprint races at the Whitewater Nationals Regatta. These races are coming back again next year and the year after. They'll be in June next year, which will present higher water and a bunch of other challenges. If you think these rapids are tough now, wait until next year's sprint races. And of course, the undercurrent to all this is that Maine's canoe heritage is once again asserting itself. There aren't many homes in the area that don't have a canoe in the backyard. This is who we are. And this is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine, brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Dysarts, EBS, and Supercuts in Bangor, Brewer, and Old Town. Join me again every Saturday at 9, Sunday at 8, and online afterwards at 929theticket.com. This is Sports Radio 929 The Ticket.